Hi there, my name is Maria Lewis, and I'm an assistant film curator at ACMI, the Australian Centre for Moving Image. And I'm honoured to be joined by filmmaker, activist, actress, and my favourite character in the Princess Diaries. Thank you so much for joining us, Heather Matarazzo. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to chat with you.
Oh, thank you for having me. Same here.
The Princess Diaries turns 20 this year, and are you at all surprised? I know it's so wild to think about, but are you at all surprised by the way this film has built this legacy over the past 2 decades?
I'm always surprised and always honored when a piece of work that I do gets to be continually embraced generation after generation. I rarely, if ever, go into any project thinking this is going to stand the test of time. Um, I'm just hoping that it breaks even at the proverbial box office. But it's a testament to the brilliant work of Gary Marshall, and Annie and Julie and Hector, and everybody that made the film what it is.
Gary Marshall's so seminal to shaping the conventions of the rom-com as we know them today, obviously with things like Overboard's a classic, Runaway Bride, but Pretty Woman, which is, considered his magnum opus, if you will. And I did read a piece that he was saying he felt like the chemistry between yourself and Anne Hathaway, he compared it to Richard Gere and Julia Roberts in Pretty Woman, and how there was just that both of you it was an unconventional friendship, but there was that sort of like little magnetic connection there. What was it like working with someone like Gary, someone who's so experienced and knows that genre so incredibly well?
Gary was the kind of individual that would end the day early so we could have a Thanksgiving Day parade because we were working through the holidays.
That sounds like a revolutionary concept in Hollywood. I love that.
Because for him, it was family first. It was family first, and that the entertainment business came second. And he was very exacting without ego. So he enabled, I can only speak for myself, but he enabled me to feel safe enough to really just fly and let Lily come to life, which is a great testament to him and his intuitive knowledge of actors and letting actors do what they do best, which is act.
It's interesting what you say about being like, yes, I've got another job, right? Because that is what the business is. It's staying employed and staying consistently paid and staying consistently active. And I find it so interesting because the Princess Diaries cast, for majority of it, is so young, and there are a lot of people like Mandy Moore and Anne Hathaway who this is considered their big break and one of their first things, whereas you had already been working steadily in the industry for quite a long period of time. By the time you get to the Princess Diaries, you'd had critical acclaim with Welcome to the Dollhouse, but you'd also been in bigger projects like Scream 3, a personal favorite of mine, and The Devil's Advocate as well. What was it like coming to a set like that, where it seems like there was a real mix of, a lot of people who were green and wide-eyed and new in the industry, and then people like Hector and Julie Andrews and Sandra Oh even, who have had so much experience and have been gigging actors for a really long time?
I mean, I was completely starstruck and just mumbled to bits by the presence of Julie Andrews. I mean, I was the child that had her pre-K teacher call her parents because I continually brought in show tune vinyl records for show and tell each week. And they were like, we need to put a stop to this. This needs to stop. So Julie Andrews, I was gaga over her. And as I said earlier, youth is wasted on the young. And it's only in hindsight that I'm able to have this deep, deep appreciation for the giants with whom I've been blessed and gifted to work with. And I mean, she was so kind and gracious, as was Hector, you know, and Sandra Oh, who I just getting to see her continued success makes me so incredibly happy. And she just, I mean, the comedic chops that woman has is just undeniable, you know. And Mandy and I like ended up becoming very, very, very close. And I was a 16-year-old punk kid from New York that was, I'm trying to find the right word, that was terribly afraid and used sarcasm and dry wit to work through that fear. So I made fun of her relentlessly because I think her album had just come out, and, you know, I'm smoking Camel filterless cigarettes and listening to Hole and Nirvana and Fiona Apple. And here comes this like pop queen. I'm like, who are you? Who are you? And we ended up getting on like a house on fire. And again, I don't mean to repeat myself, but Gary really had a tremendous gift of getting to spot talent early, and be able to be the creative alchemist that he is, you know, and know what pieces we're gonna fall together and create some sparks and magic.
I was a massive fan of the Meg Cabot book series when I was growing up. I was a tween turning into a teen, so it really hit me right in that sweet spot. And a lot of her work had themes that were really quite mature for what was considered the young adult genre back then. And like a lot of girls who read those books, it wasn't necessarily the character of Mia and this sort of Cinderella-like story that we connected with. It was Lilly, who was so outspoken and so uniquely herself and so happy with the box that she fit in, even if it didn't necessarily fit with the other assembled boxes of their particular high school. Have you been surprised with the way that character has connected with people, or did that seem like a rather seamless thing to you, given that you were, to quote yourself, that 16-year-old punk who wasn't the pop princess, somebody who fit really naturally into that part of Lilly?
I mean, it's interesting because people have one or they have two extreme feelings about Lilly. They either love her or they can't stand her and they hate her. Especially young women that were, you know, preteen, tweens, when it first came out, and then look back at it years later and they're like, what the fuck? Like, is it okay if I curse?
Go for it.
Okay. You know, but and the truth is that their argument isn't without merit. I had recently seen a clip where it's the scene where Annie and I are walking up the hill and she says something about her dad being dead. And I was like, it's been 3 months.
Yeah.
Are you over it already? And I would never.
I know the exact scene you're talking about because I remember seeing it in the cinema and just being like, oh, it's like a gut punch. You're just like, oh my God, this is the most selfish, obnoxious thing to say.
It's so rude. But here's the thing that I really do love and appreciate about Lilly is the fact that she's aware enough to recognize when she's wrong and courageous enough to own up to her own shortcomings. You know, when she says, like, I need an attitude adjustment, you know, like, this is how I was feeling. This is what was going on. I mean, some 50 somethings aren't able to do that. So a 16-year-old girl that is able to do that and have that kind of honest conversation with her friend, I think is a testament to her core character traits, which is something that I'm very proud of.
There are so many fascinating wrinkles to the Princess Diaries story, right? Whether it's Whitney Houston producing the film to her production company and how significant that contribution was, to, you know, Marvel godfather Stan Lee cameoing in the second film. I'm curious, after 20 years, what is the little wrinkle, or what is the little thing about the films that is still special to you?
My experience of unfettered joy. Just unfettered joy. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing to be able to experience, especially when you're working on a film and you're doing between 12 and 18-hour days, you know. But I looked forward to going to work each day, you know, and I looked forward to getting to play. And it really, I know it can sound quite trite sometimes when you hear actors saying, you know, it's really like a family. But really, I was just talking with a crew member a few weeks ago who was the prop master on Princess Diaries, you know, and the fact that I still have relationships, you know, Heather Hall, who was Gary's assistant, is still a very close friend of mine. Ellen Schwartz, Deborah Martin Chase, Annie, you know, like the fact that these beings still are in my life in some way 20 years later, I think is a massive testament, you know. And I've done a boatload of films and I don't keep in touch with anyone. I really don't. And it's not because I'm like, they're not worthy of keeping in touch with. It really is, you go, you do a movie, you have a very intimate, intense experience, and then you leave and that's it. And this really laid the fabric, I think, for my life in a way that is continually unfolding, as it were.
That's a really beautiful answer and a really beautiful way to end the conversation. Heather, thank you so much for joining us for ACMI Watchers and for being so generous with your time and so generous with your answers.
Oh, I received that, and thank you. And I hope everyone enjoys.